You know, my biggest concern with this bill, with all due respect to Senator Perry and Representative Guerin, is that it has frankly gone from a bad bill to a really bad, horrible bill that will result in police officers investigating immigration status of a person, including children, who are detained without showing a reasonable suspicion or probable cause, and finding that the person is in the United States illegally. I'm afraid that this legislation will lead to harassment and profiling of Latinos, especially our children, and this is the last thing that any of us would want. We certainly don't want walking while brown to become reasonable suspicion. And frankly, I'm afraid that this is what will happen with this legislation. And it doesn't matter how much the supporters of this bill promise that this will not happen. It will happen, and in some parts of my own district, it already is happening. And worst of all, I think that it will start happening even more to our children. Police chiefs from across the state, including mine, oppose this bill. And there are many reasons police agencies have instituted the policy of avoiding immigration questions during routine police work. For one, police in the field simply don't have the resources to take on the additional responsibilities of immigration enforcement. We've said it before and we'll say it again. Immigration enforcement is the responsibility of the federal law. Our local law enforcement cooperates to the extent that they can with immigration authorities. I know my county does. They already check immigration status at our county jail and report to federal immigration authorities after, and I repeat, after arrest. So I really ask the question again, as I did before, why is it necessary to pass this legislation? And why are we even having any discussion about targeting our children? Why should we ask them for their papers any more than we would be asking any adults? I strongly believe that we should focus the efforts of our police on stopping dangerous criminals in our neighborhoods and not allow our federal officials to focus on immigration. Additionally, numerous police officials from across the state have testified that this Show Me Your Papers policy will lead to fear and distrust among immigrant communities and will make their job of protecting and serving more difficult. When immigrants or citizens with immigrant families or friends fear that police officers are acting as immigration agents, they will stop reporting that they have been the victims or witnesses of crimes out of fear of deportation. Frankly, again, this is already happening in my city. Our police chief recently stated that the number of Hispanics reporting rape is down 42.8% from last year, and that those reporting other violent crimes has registered a 13% drop. All this in the backdrop of the rising deportation fears. Members, I can hardly go to any place in my district, whether it's at the laundromat or at church or at the grocery store, when people ask me about this bill and people express to me their personal fear, not just for themselves, but their children and their grandchildren. I do think this will lead to even more crimes as criminals learn their victims or the witnesses to their crimes are too afraid to come forward or cooperate with law enforcement. Does it really benefit our state to spend limited local police funding on tearing our families apart? Well, our police chiefs don't think so, and neither do I. No one has yet to define what a sanctuary city is, but I think what has been defined is that sanctuary cities and these so-called sanctuary cities bills are simply bad for business and bad for the state's economy. Texas farmers, builders, and many other industries rely on immigrant labor and their purchasing power. Our economy would take a serious blow if we mandate the prioritizing of police resources and the ultimate deportation of hardworking immigrants of the state. Not only do unauthorized immigrants contribute with their labor and purchasing power, let's be mindful, members, that they also pay taxes. In fact, a recent study by the Institute of Taxation and Economic Policy estimates that unauthorized immigrants in Texas collectively paid $1.5 billion, and that's billion with a B, in property, sales, and excise taxes in 2012. Texas has always been a state that prides itself on supporting local control, so why do we stop now? We claim to want our businesses and economy to grow, yet we continue to push for legislation that the business community has said over and over and over and over again that it is bad for business. Do we really want Texas to be subjected to boycotts and Arizona-like sanctions by national groups who support humane treatment of unauthorized immigrants and oppose racial profiling of Latinos? At the end of the day, members, SB 4 won't just impact unauthorized immigrants, it will impact negatively on all Texas citizens, regardless of immigration status or ethnicity. This legislation is an unnecessary mandate, creating more problems than it fixes, and is contrary to the values that Texans hold dear. I said before that this bill will go from a broken taillight that will lead to a broken family, that would lead to a broken faith in our system. Today I'll add, it will also be a tragedy that it will add children to the list, and it may be a day where even walking while brown may be enough for a child or anyone to get stopped. I urge you to not concur, to not support the motion to concur. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Perry, Senator Perry. Thank you.